It's such a pleasure to hear from a couple of y'all, and I'm hoping by the end of the day, I hear from every single one of y'all. And that is a challenge to you that I'm extending, absolutely, because I do not like to be the only one talking. And trust me, I get bored of these talks as much as you do. So in 20 minutes down, if no one's asked a question, I am going to call someone out and you're going to ask a stupid question and I don't care what it is. So I am that kind of person. And if you don't like it, well, tough shit, get out. If not, just come along for the ride because I like doing shit like this. So thank you again for wanting to learn more. And before we jump in, I also wanted to say I do want to put this out there. I like it more to be a discussion. So if there are questions, comments, violent reactions that you have during this entire presentation, feel free to come up and say something and ask it or initiate the conversation because this conversation is bigger than who I am and what I'm going to present to you. It's bigger than all of us combined. Let's put this out there. So the more we're able to connect and bring a better, bigger, higher level, let's go there. So I probably have made mistakes on this presentation. I'm completely okay with that. And if there is, call me out on it. That's okay. We'll talk about it. So without further ado, I'm going to present my screen. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Let's start. I kind of want a drum roll. I really want a drum roll. Just like, I don't know. I don't even know how to do it. So we'll start with just reading this, what it says on the screen. The intersection of migrants, migrant communities and design. It is an absolute mouthful when I said it, when I wrote it down. And I am looking for more ideas if there is on improving this. And at the end of this talk, if you do have any, please let me know because we can come back and edit in person while I'm doing this, while I'm presenting too. That's completely fine. The goal for this discussion today from my end is to ensure that you understand who a migrant is, what this community is, and how it's already a part of your life. Like, how can you access it from where you are now, what you can do to include it more in your research, all of that. You'll learn a little bit about some of the challenges they go through, some of their own lives, some of what they provide to the society. You're just gonna, just general, how they participate. And then lastly, we're gonna try, or I'm gonna try and talk to you about how I have actually used some of these tools or it's just questions that I've used in my design process that have allowed me to capture data that's key in creating any product or solution that I've done. And hopefully that's also something y'all will take from here. So now you're wondering, who am I? Why am I talking about this? Why do I have the authority to talk about this? Because most of this is because, well, my name is Archie, as Amy already mentioned. I'm a UX researcher. This is something that I have studied for 7 years, fun things. And I have a background in different design disciplines like architecture, industrial design, and gained multiple nuances to, or let's just call it different cultures of design, different aspects of design, and how I've been able to use that in my own process. But not just that, I'm also a host of the podcast called I'm Not From Here. It is a podcast about designers or creatives specifically, designing their lives and careers in foreign countries. We talk about some of the themes that we go through in our own lives. And this could be simple things like the last episode was about responsible citizenship and how we as migrants are stuck between the country we're born in and the country we're currently residing in. And how do we actually participate? Feel free to listen if you want. I'm going to shamelessly rep my podcast the entire time. Sorry. But this has been experiences that have, like, every conversation that I've had with them has been coming from all the experiences I've had growing up and living in multiple different countries in the world. I was born in India, South India specifically. We're all not repped by the Taj Mahal. This is the Meenakshi Amman Temple. It is a World Heritage Site, and I've probably been there twice. It's beautiful and massive. And every bit of that architecture is exciting to see, colorful as it's presented. It has a story to tell as well. Every layer is a new story that keeps developing on itself. Fun fact. I grew up in Oman, and what you're seeing in front of you is the Sultan Qaboos Grand Mosque. It is a Muslim country, and I was surrounded by Muslim culture in my own life as I've grown up. The perspective I received of that culture has been very different from what is currently portrayed in the news, putting it out there. And from there, I got thrown into New York. I did my undergrad in New York. I went to Pratt for architecture, and I've lived around in the eastern seaboard of the USA, pretty much, and I've gained a lot of experience from the southern side of things, even to the northern side of things. I'm sorry, I cannot speak anything for the west side. It seems too calm for my life, and I've not experienced that just yet. So all of this kind of led into what I call myself as global citizen, because I cannot associate with one of these places as home. I cannot sit here and tell you I have a home, because every time I talk about home, it's always going to be me and where I'm located. So it's all about the heart. Let's just call it that. But here's the fun parts. And Amy and Chris, you guys were asking about it earlier. I am moving. I am moving to London in October. I did get a job there. I'm really stoked and excited. I've been having a lot of visa struggles these past couple of months, and they can attest to it. It is something that is a part of my own life that I've had to deal with, and I'm so glad this kind of worked out in the right time, right place. I guess everything worked out. So there's, I guess, more learning to come, more of these experiences to add on, and more empathy to build consequently. I just want to say, like, as a migrant, I've been able to bring a lot of the perspectives from these multiple different cultures that I've been a part of. I've had unique experiences. I've been able to share them in my own community. Simple thing, I actually celebrated Ramadan as it's called. I would break iftar with a couple of my friends. It's the best food you can have, honestly. And I would still do that in a heartbeat. And that's allowed me to be a part of this culture and gain the perspective I need when it comes to designing, and even being able to add that to the conversation has been a blessing in disguise. So let's get to the topic of who is actually a migrant. This is something that I've had to do some thinking on. It starts off with the traditional Oxford Dictionary, Oxford Languages definition. A person who moves from one place to another, especially in order to find work or better living conditions. I wholeheartedly disagree with this. I cannot explain why I don't identify as this. Partly, the word migrant has so many different connotations. There's so many ways to look at it. There are different words like nomad, global citizen, the one that I called myself, an immigrant, an expatriate, expat, non-resident, alien. A lot of this I've had to check off, and alien is a thing. I've had to check it off in a government form to apply for some visas or some kind of paperwork. And I've had to do that. It's standard practice, and it's a part of who I'd have to categorize myself as. These are not exciting words or positive words when you say alien or non-resident. It puts me as other, straight up, just calling it what it is. A nomad tells me I could be equal to a Neanderthal. And maybe some people will find a positive connotation to it. But the reality is that's not what I associate with, and it's not going to be the one I would pick in a form straight up. The other part of this definition is there's no geographical boundaries associated with this. Whenever we talk about a migrant, in this context, at least, sorry, not whenever, in this context, at least, when I look at this definition, I'm going to say it could be between states. What I really want to know is this across countries? Because that geographical boundary difference makes the migrant also different. It's a different type of migration. I don't think we can call it the same thing when a state, I would consider it moving, while a country, I would consider it migrating. Now, I want to bring to light a couple of other definitions that have come up along the way in different government websites. So the UN definition is someone who moves for just at least a year. So it's a way to say it's temporary. The dictionary, you would say, the dictionary says enter in order to settle, which I still don't think that's accurate fully. Then you have subject to immigration control. And these two, the bottom two, we start getting closer to how you can start associating the countless names that we saw, foreign born or foreign nationals. And again, they're both different. Foreign born implies where you are born. Foreign national implies where you are from. It might not need be where you're born. It's just the passport, the color of your passport is essentially how you look at it. And the last part of this is the two definition or reasons why they say people migrate are so, they do not contain the so many different reasons why someone would or could or should migrate, right? We're forgetting safety. Let's talk about the Afghan refugee crisis that's going on right now. They're only migrating because of safety, for freedom, for better life choices. And then there could be the educated migration, which is a different type of migration. We can talk about cultural exposure. We can talk about more opportunities, a different lifestyle, which is what I would fall into. And then you could talk about a different cream of the crop. And this is someone who has the money and who's able to explore. They could be doing it for social media, and that could be as simple as a reason. And what we find there is in order to find work or better living conditions, falls short of capturing the countless reasons that people actually migrate for. I've had conversations with Muslim women in India who are actually not treated the way as equals at all within their own household, one, and within society, because there is Muslim oppression in the country. As a result, her reason to move is purely freedom to be who she is. And that is a new ballgame when we're starting to think about how these people are actually coming here to be present, to be who they are, to live the life that they've wanted to live, which they aren't able to access where they are or currently living, or their homes, home country, birth country, whatever it is. They're not able to get that there. There have been so migration has been happening for the last 200,000 years. It's not new. This is kind of where we started from. This is a phenomenal article by the National Geographic. Geographic? Okay, Geographic. On migration, which is previously we considered migration happening because of wars, disasters, and potentially now we can start thinking about how climate can affect migration patterns, which is very interesting to think about because you now have the choice based on climate conditions, and you can start seeing patterns changing. This has been traditionally how you would see it started all in Africa. That's actually where everyone has migrated out of. We call it like the Gondwana thing, where it was a collected landmass that then just broke off into the multiple countries that we have. So now we have the option to interact with other beings, and that's where the Neanderthals got introduced. And at that time, when we're talking about 200,000 years ago, it was done for the reasons of food, shelter, and at that time it was climate. Like, who'd want to stay in a cold country at that point, or a cold climate, just so they can live and survive better. So we're starting to see those reasons resurface again, essentially when we're looking at the Afghan crisis and we're looking at other people like Syrian refugees moving, it's resurfacing, but it's resurfacing because of wars and disasters, which is not a great way to move. So I want to rethink about this definition, right? Coming back, looking at a little bit of the historical context to this, and then looking at the different pieces of this. The way I see it is it's a person who moves from one country to another to learn, to work, or to live a life of their choosing. Now, I know that sounds incredibly vague, but the point of keeping it vague is to allow others to interpret what that means to them and allow different interpretations of it in general. Case in point, to learn could be to study, could be to pick up a trade, to work could be from agriculture, work, labor work, to educated work, whatever that means. And choosing a life could be safety, could be freedom, it could be addressing a lot of those different themes that we've talked about. Of why someone would decide to move. And this is kind of how I envision this definition to be, which allows me to encompass multiple other elements of, or multiple other names or nouns that are used to call it the same thing, like nomad or global citizen. It takes on a more positive light, which is what I like. But at this point, if anyone has any comments or thoughts or violent reactions, I'm taking it. I'm going to call out people if people don't speak up, and that is completely okay. Anyone have a thought? Anyone want to choose to speak or want to address this definition? Okay, I haven't heard from Matt M. Matt M, do you want to say something?
I'm just kind of absorbing everything. And I agree with a lot of the definitions. I'm kind of it seems a little bit. It seems like now would be a particularly difficult time to be a migrant, given a lot of the restrictions that are in place in a lot of countries. And
you are correct, and I will tell you from experience that you are correct. I am coming from an educated background migrant, so I would be considered a highly skilled migrant, which means I have a master's, a bachelor's, and all of that, which still puts me at a disadvantage, just so you know.
Oh, wow.
That is the current state of the world, and mostly this is because of COVID. Now, I have seen rosy pictures of people moving on social media, which has absolutely happened, but a lot of them move from first world countries. There is a difference moving from a first world country, moving from a second world country, and moving from a third world country. It is very different. Each of them are provided different options and opportunities in the visa process itself. A little information.
Oh yeah, I've only. I work at a company that has employees all over the world, and we were very remote friendly, but just gathering a group of people in Cincinnati was an undertaking just this past summer. Oh, I guess it still is summer, but yeah, we had to jump through so many hoops. And just from people from India, Serbia. I think we did have a few people from the UK, but it was months in the making.
Gotcha. Well, I think the trend, there is a upcoming trend that I'm foreseeing a lot, and I don't want to get too much into this, and I will stop there so we can continue on. I'm seeing a huge trend in people wanting the ability to choose where they want to live because we are starting to become remote. We're going to see a new change in migration patterns where people are choosing their lives as opposed to forced into their lives. A lot of the times, an example, I didn't intend to move to London. I am doing so because my visa expires in October and I cannot continue to work in this country because of that, period. So there are no other ways for me to get a different visa, which is why I'm forced to move. Now, I see this as I get to do it because it's, in the end of the day, it's still a new country and a first world country, something I'm still interested in, and I get to new perspectives. And to me, that's still valuable, but there are a lot of other people who would not see it that way. And I just giving some perspective to the thought there. There's more than just meets the eye.
Yeah, I'm both kind of excited and apprehensive of what it can mean for different people.
We'll continue on, and
Sure.
this kind of topic gets a little out of way because I really get excited about this. This is why I started my podcast, for this reason, because a lot of people were having trouble having these conversations out in the open. It's not easy for them to say because it's a sign of failure. Culturally speaking, it's seen as a sign of failure for not being chosen for a visa. So there are a lot of different connotations to this. So these conversations don't come up, which is again why I'm having this talk, because I've been given the opportunity to speak my mind and speak about my truth.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Matt M, for your thoughts and your comments. We will continue, and I will make sure everyone else is also listening as we go on. To be a teacher, little, it's so exciting. All right.
Before we
So
moved on, do you, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Before
No,
we moved
go
on,
for
would
it.
you mind if I asked for a clarification regarding the definition?
Yeah, let's do
So
it.
I guess I'm just wondering, is there a delineation? I mean, this could be like a subcategory, right? So under this sort of definition of migrant, I think there's a lot in terms of like, you know, the intent or the choice to, you know, pursue other opportunities or better opportunities, better material realities or safety. But I'm wondering, you know, would someone who is, say, like a climate refugee, right? Someone who is forced out of where they live due to changing weather patterns. I mean, I guess you could say, okay, well, they could stay there, I guess. But I guess I'm wondering if there's a like a distinction within that definition between people who, you know, are like, if someone is sort of involuntarily, you know, relocated as a result of either, you know, climate disaster or even government relocation or something, like, would that be someone who would qualify under the umbrella of migrant, or would that be like a bespoke term, something different?
So the term refugee definitely implies moving without choice.
Okay.
I will say that. So as soon as you say whatever type of refugee that you put in there, they're seeking asylum.
Okay.
They're asylum seekers. According to the government definition, they're considered asylum seekers, which means they are looking for safety when they come into other countries. And more often than not, the first world countries only have the option or ability to absorb these people, because second world countries are battling population density, are battling bigger problems like that. And as you have seen, China did the one child thing a long time ago, and now they've actually removed it. So they're trying to increase population. So they will start accepting more of refugees. You'll start seeing patterns like that. So they're all signals to let you know where people are going to start moving. That being said, usually I'll give you, Canada just accepted 20,000 applicants for Afghan refugees. Just recently they put an announcement. And then you're going to look at America. They're still working on paperwork for their own people. It's different countries process it very differently. And then UK is taking in a couple of people. I don't think I've heard of China or any others taking in a couple of people, but just giving you some context. Anytime you use the word refugee, it is an asylum seeker.
Okay.
They're coming for safety. They're coming for better living conditions. And I would bucket that under live a life of their choosing, because, and that's why I said I want to keep it as vague as possible. And I still probably will reword this 10 ways till Sunday. And I've sat here already rewording it 10 ways till Sunday. But the reality is, these interpretations need to be accommodated into the term of migrant. Because I could consider myself a migrant, but I would be considered that way under highly skilled migrant if I'm looking at the government definition. So a lot of these terms that are coming up are based off of government definitions that are now put into law, which is the sad part. And alien is one of them. Can you imagine how I would feel like a second world citizen? Because I will tell you now, I cannot vote in any country in this world because I am a non-resident Indian. I'm not an American citizen, and I don't have an Omani passport. So I cannot vote anywhere. I cannot have a say. So a lot of these migrants are seeking for ways to be heard, which is, again, I'm going way too far, but I love these conversations. I hope I answered your question, and I don't know your name. Could you please let me know your
My
name?
name is Brian. And no, you did.
Brian?
I really appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, of course. And let me know if more people have clarifications like this. I would like to continue to do this more. All right, moving forward. Now, we talked about diversity, right? And this is actually the different dimensions of diversity that exist out there. We traditionally, when we look at diversity, we look at the internal dimensions. We look at age, race, and age is also not that big a conversation, but race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation have become massive conversations and have even powered some of the BLM movements, right? Not some, all. And then we have physical ability, which we're starting to see in UI UX taking a massive role in. Accessibility has become big. Now, I'm not going to be able to advocate for the other pieces here, partly because I'm not fully there myself, or yeah, I'm not fully there myself. So an example I will say is in under external dimensions. This is how other people kind of perceive you in some way, or other people categorize you also, right? You'll start seeing marital status, parental status, appearance. Now, we don't really talk about it much, but I will throw this out there. In Spain, they ask a woman to put that on their resume. You have to put a photo of yourself, you have to put your marital status, and you have to put your parental status, because they want to know how much to pay you based on whether you have given birth or not. These are not conversations that are just happening here. They're conversations that need to happen worldwide. Again, in Poland, they are not giving the rights for women to choose abortion or not. And it's still a conversation that's happening here, but we're at a point where we're ensuring we're trying to keep what we have. They don't even have that option. In India, you can't even know the sex of the baby because they will, there are people, if it's female, they will try and abort it. They only want male kids. So things like that are still prevalent. We are not seeing them in first world countries because we're now focused on the individual. But these external dimensions are based on community. They're based on association, organizational associations. And that is where I am bringing in the conversation of migrant. I want to ensure that we're bringing this thread of geographical location, the external dimension of diversity into the conversation. I'm not going to say that it's explicitly inclusive because right now it's still sidelined. It's still not talked about. But when we're talking about all these internal aspects of it, why not add the aspect of migration? Because these showcase what your relations are. Now, when you look at this wheel, this is like a fun fact that I recently read as well. When you look at religion, you notice that it's not colored in the same wheel as the others. Even though it's community oriented, it still plays a huge role in your belief system. And hence it's considered part of the internal dimension as well. So it's a combination. Just a heads up, fun fact. So this is kind of where the thread that we're starting to see how diversity can play into the conversation, how migration can play, or migrants can play into the conversation of diversity, maybe in your own office, your own community, your own wherever. Currently, there are 281 million migrants in this world. And that's mid 2020. And that still rose from 2019. That is, it was a pretty shitty year. 2020 was a pretty shitty year for everyone because of the pandemic and whatever people call it now. I just want to put it out there. That's a huge number. And if you look at the number of people that are migrating, look at the, sorry, I keep pointing with my finger. Look at where migration is taking place. The highest is always going to be Europe because of how easy it is accessibility wise, because it's central. And these are just patterns that you start noticing. And then you look at Northern America, you look at Asia, it's pretty high. Like the rest of the countries are pretty low at the bottom. These are pretty developed nations that we're looking at. These are also veto countries, part of the UN, and hence they're heavily migrated to because they have capabilities. So basically, all of this comes down to, there are a lot of migrants in this world. We are a part of your community, your existing community. We're at your work, we're in your family, we're your servers, we're your business owners, we're so many pieces. We're part of your lives. And we're also your users. And we're a huge group of your users that you are not recognizing just yet. Now you're wondering and this is the part that I get really excited about, because as a migrant, I'm like, go team. But I'm gonna say it anyways. This is something that we see as, why are they important to society? Why should we be considering them in our own research? What do they bring to the table for us to consider them? Now, these are just generic terms. First, I will put this out there. We have our first social cultural. Can you count, like on Uber Eats, you can just literally select the countless cuisines on there. That's straight up, that's immigrant culture finding its way onto an app. Let's put it there. I put Tex-Mex there because I really like Tex-Mex. I like the combination. Rihanna, Justin Bieber, come on people, music. They're adding to the array of output that we already have. And then Yoko Ono, William de Kooning, artists who are all immigrants who have brought conversations and made people talk. This is conversations that have happened on the table. Now, when it comes to food apps, yeah, we see it everywhere. It's a part of our lives. It's very like, oh, I can get Chinese tomorrow. But there's a lot of stories behind there that are also happening. And we're going to talk a little more about that. This is an interesting thing to me. I talked to y'all about not being able to vote anywhere in this world. There was a reason I pulled it out, because it is really dependent on the policy, not just of your host country, but also your home country. In my home country, I'm not allowed to vote because I haven't ever lived there, but I do have a passport of birth country, sorry. I do have a passport from my birth country. I'm still not able to participate in political affairs, but I am able to be a representative of my country, of the cultures, the countless cultures that I've been a part of in my host community. I'm able to talk to y'all about Oman. I'm able to talk to y'all about India. I'm able to talk to y'all about, now when I move to the UK, I'll talk about America. So these are all conversations I can start because I am being a representative of the countless places that I have. I'm able to create an equality in your own presence about these countless cultures, about chaotic presentations of current cultures like the Muslim culture, right? I don't see it that way, and I'm never going to. I'm so used to seeing women in hijabs and niqabs just walking down the street, and we will have conversations. They're beautiful, by the way, just saying. Omani people are gorgeous. But I start becoming a representation of them. Now, if there are more active participatory countries who allow you to vote, allow you to partake, I mean, our greatest example here is Arnold Schwarzenegger. He became a governor of California, but imagine the perspective he brings to the table for migrant communities, and especially Austrian migrants. Blows my mind that that's even possible today. So that is something to commend because it's massive. And I think this is my most exciting part is 45% of companies are founded by immigrants or children of immigrants. And it's generated about 16.1 trillion in revenue in 2018, which is huge. If we start looking at the companies, it's insane. Like Amazon's one of them. It was backed by an immigrant. We're talking about Google. We're talking about Tesla. These are all massive tech companies that have become huge, all in the name of, with the help of immigrants and migrants. We are a part of this community, and we are providing to this community actively. We're not trying to be sidelined. We just want to be involved. We just want to be heard. Last year, 2019, that is the amount of taxes my immigrants paid in America. Putting it on the table, I can't even, I'm not even gonna attempt that. I'm just gonna be like 500 billion, trillion, billion, okay. But that is a lot of money, and it is all not even self-serving, because we don't get the benefits that's awarded to the citizens of the home country. We don't. And so we are giving this money willingly for a chance at a better life, freedom. That is the culture that you're going to find within migrant communities. Now, can you imagine having all of that? What we as in your team could bring to your team, could bring to your product. And I have this theory that I want to change the word POC from people of color to pocket of culture. I am on a steamroll train trying to make it happen, but I want to do that because I think that is freaking brilliant, because they bring that perspective, they bring the culture to the table that you don't have. When I say you, I mean citizens. No offense, people. We're bringing in new perspectives to the team, to the product. And what's the biggest thing, we face so many challenges because of migrating. And these are visa struggles that are active, that are ongoing, that we have to adopt a hustler mentality. I have learned to live very comfortably in the unknown. I kind of just be like, I don't know shit. Okay, cool, we'll figure it out. And that is the best attitude a researcher can have. And I didn't even get it from studying UX research. I got it from being a migrant. That is something that's the kind of hustler mindset, or the mindset that comes with a migrant on your team. This is what I would like to tell to all the migrants or immigrants or whatever you call yourselves in the audience here today. We are more than a piece of paper. We are not our visas. We are more than that. We are more than the offer of what you see on your passport as well. With that, any comments here, any thoughts here, anyone I should call before I call someone? Put your name out there or you're going to get called. I wish I can see names. How about Julie Meyer? I can pronounce your name, Julie. I'm sorry.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good.
How are you enjoying the talk so far?
Oh, I'm just listening away and stuff, and that I'm surprised at some of the numbers, and that, but I like your energy. I like your spunk.
Oh, thank you. I have a lot of that. Did you have any comments or any questions for me? Anything you'd like to know a little more of? Any insights of your own, which is also fine, or any experiences you've had.
I guess the one thing I would like to know is if there was one thing you could change, what would it be?
That's such a hard question. I really want to get rid of borders and boundaries. That's my future dream state. It would be nice not to think about every time I travel, I have to think about a visa, or I have to think about whether I'm safe to stay in this country or not, because every single year I've been thinking about my life always in what is it? In the number of visa years I'm allocated. So an example, I got a 5-year visa. I will think of my life in 5 years. I cannot plan beyond that because I don't know where I will be. So it would be nice to have more of a seamless, streamlined process where you're able to achieve what you want and not live based off of the government stipulated visas, which is why I say, if we eliminate boundaries, that's never going to happen. We can have better, different types of controls. I think that would be good to see. How you would adapt into the country, how you would be a providing or supportive member of society. How would that happen? Then that's the evaluation criteria.
Thank you.
It felt like a terrible answer, but I'm just going to go with it. Did anyone else have any thoughts, any other comments that they wanted to? All right, okay. I feel like I should announce who I'm going to call on next, so you can also be a little bit prepared. Suzanne Parkey, you're up next, okay? I'm just letting you know in advance. All right, moving forward. So now we're going to come into how you can be more helpful in this community, how you can be more helpful to the community, participate in the community, and even just get to know like people in your own circle. First up, I say listen with your eyes and ears. That's what I say. There are migrants in your community. As I mentioned, there are 281 million migrants in this world. We're in your circle. Pay attention, listen and see with more, listen and pay, sorry, let me rephrase that. See who's in your environment. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Listen to their stories, because this is what's going to help build empathy and bring that to your design process. You're able to access these communities because your existence is intersectional. They're around you. They're a part of your own life. You are a combination of multiple different people, communities, cultures. You can say it. It's true. And when we aren't at our peak, it's mostly because the foundation for our life is our visa. And so when migrants are not at their peak, they tend to be lower. If you're at work and you see this happen in to your own peers, you'll start understanding why. Simply ask them, understand, and this could translate beyond migrants, right? And another way to be a part of this is talk to them, and apart from that, join Facebook groups. I've been a part of countless Facebook groups about expats, and all they talk about some of the problems that they've gone through and maybe troubleshooting some of the answers that they're looking for. And I know that might not be something that you need at that moment, but it gives you a very keen insight into the mindset of a migrant. And that might be something you can bring to the conversation, a perspective you can bring to the table as a designer. Also, don't forget to listen to my podcast, because that also gives you good insight. Just saying. Apart from that, this is something that I believe should be done wholeheartedly. Companies right now do not completely allow migrants to be employed, mostly because of the costs that are associated with it. Honestly, push for them to get hired, because this is the easiest way to get access to communities that you wouldn't traditionally have. And it's one thing to gain access to it when it's just in your circle. It's another thing to have them participate in research studies or pretty much any project that you are doing. It's a massive difference. There is a quietness because we've traditionally never been spoken up about these conversations. And it could be and again, if you're unable to do that in the current job that you have, or current company that you have, don't worry about it. There's another way to access this simply by changing the wording of the job description to be a little more inclusive, removing the question, do you now or in the future need a sponsorship or require sponsorship from the recruitment process? These are small steps that can get there, but these steps demand conversations within your own company, which is really key to understanding and promoting more migrants to getting hired. I will say this now, the only thing keeping us in a country is dependent on education and a job. If we don't have a job, we have 3 months to get out, period. That is this country, and for different countries, it's a different timeline, but that does happen. And when we are pushing to get hired, most of the time it's so that we can stay in this country. Because we are intending to get jobs and because we're trying to retain the ones that we have, we will go above and beyond in our lives just so we can keep that job. There are countless stories I've heard from New York about migrants being used left, right, and center and not being given just basic needs as taking a break or lunch or whatever as part of their job. So just don't be a dick, be nice, be respectful of their time and their energy. Treat them like you would a citizen. There's no need to take advantage. And lastly, I always say, be in the know. Understand if they're a part of your team, if they're a part of your life, it's good to understand what they're going through. Understand, maybe look at some immigration laws, maybe understand what that's happening. Follow immigrant journeys, listen to my podcast. Hey, I need to keep putting like a bell every time I say that. And most importantly, don't be afraid to talk about it. Share your own knowledge, share what you found, because these are conversations that need to be happened. And I will say this, I'm leading up to this. All the migrants in our audience, again, I'm addressing you guys. Do not be afraid to share your story, your struggles. We've been quiet for so long, and it's considered the dark side of our careers for a reason, but at the end of the day, without this foundation, we're not going to be able to sustain even a job. So all in all, I'm coming to say, be courteous and respectful and understanding of your peers and what they're going through, maybe the people around you, because all of this will lead into some of the things that you could bring to the table when you're part of the design process. Now, this is the part that I'm always a little controversial about. I've only used this as a part of my own research and how I would like to address it. So I'm just going to straight up dive in. One of the biggest things that you can do is right now, we are not identifying or diversifying our pool of candidates just yet. I'm looking at it purely from a research perspective and how I bring it into UX research. These are some of the questions I would ask when I'm either trying to identify the migrants in my user pool or trying to capture and add on to it. And I'll give you an example. There are data sets out there that for banking that claim that migrants have the most number of savings accounts. You can easily find that. And there's a reason for that. And we've talked about these reasons countlessly as we've continued the conversation or continue the talk. So these are simple things that could be asked. Instead of asking questions like, where are you from? Switch it to where are you born? Because that tells you whether they're actually from the country or they're not. Another way to think about it is if we're looking at the definition across states, right? We can say, how long have you been living in the current city you're in? Another way to access this is how many languages do you know? Fun fact, there are different ways to when it comes to languages, they're formulated, or sentence formation is very different. In America, you try to get to the point as quickly as possible. In Japan, you actually give your entire explanation. At the end of it, you tell them the point. So the way you think is modeled after how your language is learned. There is another way that's another way to be capturing mental models within our own community, within the design space. You can start addressing because of that, you can start addressing what language are you most fluent in. Another way to look at how their thinking or mental model is formulated. Quick questions like, do you plan on moving in the near future? So you know whether they're going to stay in the current location or they're going to move very soon. That means you're starting to think about solutions that are going to be temporary. Do you know if you're going to stay in the next place long? Do you know if you're going to stay here long? These are questions that not all the time can be answered, but they are good questions to ask because you can start segmenting your user pool to give you good quality data, or you're able to even classify your data in terms of a percentage or claim that, because as I mentioned, we are a part of the user group. We are a part of our users. Might as well count it as data that you can actually process information through. The next part, and I've always found that because I've moved a lot, and I will give the example of the NJ Transit app because I use it. Whenever I come back into New York or New Jersey is when I download this. Otherwise, I always delete it off my phone. Bumble is an example. It's beyond migrants, but it's an example to say that these are temporary apps or temporary solutions that we have come up with. Now, what you can do as a researcher or as a user or designer, you can start thinking about how are these solutions actually used temporarily? Are they helpful? Are they used in the way that they were intended to use? What is the efficiency? You can start asking questions like, how many times have you re-downloaded this thing? Is the process easy? Is it difficult? Has it been difficult? Have you had to sign up multiple times? What made you stop using this? Would they use the solution again? Why? These are other ways to think about how your temporary solution could actually function well and efficiently. And you can start thinking about what you're creating as temporary as well. Now, if you're looking for more of a permanent solution, this might not be a target group that you're looking at. Just saying. And if it's something that you want long-term users on, where you don't want a lot of attrition, Facebook, Instagram, those are examples. It's hard for them to get more people on, but it's easy for them to get rid of people, like for people to jump off. But they're looking for long-term users. So, and that changes the way you start processing or you start thinking about the app and segmenting. Anyway, that's kind of all I have for today. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't take up more time than I needed to. Oh no, I didn't. Yay. We are now, you can find me in all these places, and also my podcast on all these places, wherever you listen to it. It's called I'm Not From Here. And we're open to questions, comments. I'd already picked someone in advance, so that person goes next.
Yeah, so Archie, do you, at this time in your life, do you prefer to be a migrant, or because you enjoy moving and in new cultures, or do you see in the future you'd like to be in one certain place?
Personal, to be honest, I can't answer that because the grass is always greener on the other side. That's the mentality that I look at it at. So I've always moved. I've never stayed in a house longer than 2 years. I will say that. I've actually lived in 17 houses or apartments in 11 years, just saying. So I guess I'm very used to it at this point. and I'm very open to new cultures. It's really informed me how I interact with people and how I work with people, which has been a blessing as a researcher to be added to my capabilities in a way. So I do thoroughly enjoy it. So I probably will continue to do it because I will get bored eventually. But I'm also hoping to have a place for longer than 2 years. That would be nice. It would be a blessing or a gift, rather, is how I see it.
Well, I appreciate your talk because it's definitely brought up some great points and makes me think of some of the demographics for our users if we've ever looked at this particular user group to see how that may affect things or not. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Did anyone else have any comments or questions or had any experiences that they want to share? Oh, we have a face here. I'm so excited. Hi.
Hi, my name is Marie. I am the daughter of an immigrant. I married an immigrant. So I have some personal experience. I think one of the first user experiences, if you will, that many people have with migrants is if they have a quote unquote ethnic name, is how to pronounce it if it's unfamiliar to them. And
You're speaking my language, Marie.
so I was wondering when we have, introducing new employees, or I'm a former teacher, and I think children are particularly vulnerable, right? Because they don't necessarily feel they have the wherewithal to speak for themselves, depending on how old they are. If we might not make it common practice in our era of technology to have a video file, not a video, an audio file with a person saying their name the way they would like it to be pronounced. And how you feel about people feeling comfortable, migrants, in maintaining their name and how much they adapt in order to make it easier for people in their new home. Just real quick, my mother, for instance, when she migrated here, she changed her name to make it more Americanized. My former husband, would think that was a totally ridiculous idea. So different generation, different ways, and different background. So I'll stop and await your response. Thank you.
Honestly, Marie, I am a victim of this myself. When I came here, I was 17 and my name is Archana Mani Srinivasan. That's my full name. People cannot pronounce Mani Srinivasan for the nuts. So I shortened my name to Archie. I have learned to grow into that name and become the person I am with the egg shirt, the colorful egg shirt and all of that. But in the end of the day, I regret that I didn't announce myself as Archana from the beginning of me moving here. Now, that being said, I do agree that it's important to learn how to pronounce different names. I will also say the way we speak, I actually was recently watching a TikTok of someone showing how vocal vibrations take place when you talk different languages. And for an American, it's different. For someone who from France, it's different. So our pronunciations are always going to be butchered. The goal is to get as close as possible. This is actually something that I want to talk on my podcast about. Why we change our names and how have we lost culture as a byproduct of this. Now, I don't know if I answered your question completely. I still think it's important that we learn, and I think LinkedIn has started to do that very slowly but surely in allowing you to record how you pronounce your name. And you can always hit that record, like listen to the person's name before you can say it yourself. So go try it out over there, see if that works for you, if that's worked for you. But I can't claim that I did the right thing at that time. But now I can't go back. Sorry. I hope I answered your question, Marie, and yeah, unless you had some response, we can move on to the next person. Or did someone else have a thought to the idea of changing their names? There is a fun fact. I actually have a friend who is Asian, Asian, bad term, Chinese, and in her school, kindergarten, they changed her name. Her name was Yu. I cannot pronounce that name. I pronounce it Yu. And she told me her teacher changed it to Aubrey. So they appoint or give those names, teachers give those names to students to make it easier for the Western world to recognize them, which is kind of insane. So there is an erasure of culture by doing that, which is what I don't like.
That's really scary. BJ, I noticed that you had turned your microphone on. Just wondering if you had a question or a comment as well.
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot. Hello, Archana. This is Vijay from India. I hope I pronounce your name correctly.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that I woke up in the morning and attended this talk, because I personally have been battling my life in a different segment though. But maybe me and you would have shared some similar thoughts when as we were growing up. So. Although I didn't live in many different countries, I only lived in Abu Dhabi, but within India, I lived in 10 different places. So,
Wow.
And if you're aware of the diversity we have, north, south, east, every place has a different culture. And, when you're growing as a child, and especially when you interact with kids in the school, you understand very fundamental differences, what the culture has shown to us, like how they perceive simple things like food, like you bring something in your tiffin box, and some people would react to it in a different way, whereas a few months back you were in a different place and they reacted to it in a different way. So
I just want to mention the fact that you mentioned tiffin box that I haven't heard in so long. It's back home, we did call it tiffin box as opposed to lunch box is what we call it here. So just giving some clarity to the other folk on the call, but go for it.
Sure. Yeah. So I and also, like before this talk, I always felt this, and I always told people about the idea of when you grow in several places, you try to respect perspectives in much more different way. Like probably you respect it as individual perspective, and you have its own. You kind of have the value to each of these individual perspectives, and uh, mostly it used to be like one way where I'm speaking about these things, but I couldn't it was hardly when I would get some response. But I think I'm glad that I attended this talk, and these conversations are going forward. So one of the reason I joined this talk is I personally wanted to harness this idea of my own understanding of people perspectives, and differentiating how these when they are in form of users, how do they perceive things in a different way than what we expect, and generically define based on profession, or just based on their age. And uh, so my idea was that I wanted to work with global designers, and to just understand how designers from various segments and various demographies have thought about similar design process, and how do they take it forward. Um, so I think I wanted to for the same, I wanted to move to US, and see for opportunities there. But being in India, the only way we see it as, moving to US for work is, you do a master's and, you struggle for a while and then you get a work opportunity. And probably that's the only way. And, I wanted to approach it in a bit different way. I wanted to understand, what are the communities like in US and, what are the conversations. And, that's another reason why I'm here. I mean, why I'm telling all this is probably, it doesn't really make a very definite statement at the end, but, just relating to whatever you said and, just understanding that, there is hope for people who think in these lines.
Absolutely. I love that you felt heard in everything that we talked about. That is something that as migrants, we battle quite a bit because it's hard for us to have a voice when our voices have been quietened for a very, very long time. So I completely understand how you feel and how excited you are to relate to something. But as you were, I wanted to react to one of the pieces that you talked about. You said you wanted to move here to get a global perspective of design and understanding of designers. And I want to add, because that's something, it's simple as, right? You're becoming a part of the society to learn about them. And you can call it dog fooding in other ways, if we're putting it in user terms and how we're perceiving it. And I think I just wanted to add that thought to what you said, completely resonate. And I'm so glad that you felt heard and you felt like you could share that experience with us as well. That's awesome. And I hope you find your way here. I really do. It's a tough battle. I will tell you now, it's really tough, but I really hope you do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot for that.
Yeah. Did anyone else have any comments or thoughts or anything they would like to share as well? Any experiences? All welcomed.
Hi, this is Brian again. I had asked a question earlier, but I was wondering, you had mentioned earlier that you had a little regret, right, is announcing yourself as Archie when you moved here. And I was wondering, I'm a transracial Korean adoptee. So something that happens amongst adoptees, or a trend I've been seeing, is people, going back to whatever their sort of birth names were later in life, right? Their native Korean names. And I was wondering, since you're in a position where you're going to be moving again, in the near future, had you considered, doing a rebranding, or is it sort of like, this is sort of my identity that I built now? And then I also wanted to just share an example when you talked about like sort of developing these, Asian kids being prescribed these Western names. I actually have a couple of examples of people who I've met, like who I knew in high school, who went by their sort of native Asian name. And then in college and beyond, I actually came up with an Americanized name, basically, because they thought it would make them more viable as professional candidates. So I just wanted to add that out there, that it's, it's at all levels. And it really is, I think, something that people in that position really kind of internalize, right? That's my name. They're less likely to even really consider me.
I'm glad you brought that. That's actually also a problem within the Black community. As soon as they see the name Tyrone, the Quan, and names like that, it's automatically there is a bias associated with that name when it comes to hiring. And they're more likely to not get hired because of the different types of names. The same with Asian names, right? You start putting names that you cannot pronounce, and people get uncomfortable and don't want to keep doing that over and over again. So I completely understand. To answer your question about my name, I came here and I was excited to change it and do something kind of be more Western when I came here. So I really adopted it and have become an Archie. Now, when we talk about code switching, the ability to switch between two languages or two accents, I have a different accent as well. I have an Indian accent, and this is my Indian accent. I can talk like this, but I'm Achna in this accent, but I'm Archie in this accent. Does that make sense? I feel like two different people. And that is actually a duality that comes with being a migrant. Because I've been a part of so many different things, I'm constantly battling one side for the culture and retaining that aspect of it. And on the other side, I have to fit in to be a part of this world where I'm looking at Archie as my name. And the reality is I feel more an Archie and more akin to that than I do with Archana. So I use Archana when I go back to India and go visit home, and only my family calls me that. And in a sense, there is a truest self and a not truest self. And this can be akin to your digital self. I'm just saying, you're a different person when you're on screen than when you are in person. And I think that's also very similar, and I resonate with that a lot. But yeah, I truly think that I probably will continue with Archie, especially now that I'm going to UK and I'm a woman with the name Archie. It confuses the crap out of everyone. I think that would be hilarious. I'm just gonna like, Archie, it's the child is after my name. That's all I'm gonna keep saying.
It looks
Yeah.
like Ellie has their hand up.
Go for it, Ellie.
Hello. I wanted to say firstly, this was an awesome talk. When you got to the end, I was like, what? No, keep going. I want to hear more. As someone who's a first generation African American in New York City, and who was planning to move abroad, I was planning to move to Japan, but
If you do, let me know, please. I'll come visit.
I'll send you the invite. But
Please.
it's been trying to move abroad has been super complicated, with all the borders being closed and constantly trying to prove yourself as like, I'm telling you, I know how to do the thing. Just let me do the thing. On top of all the other, for lack of better words, problematic things that can happen throughout the process. When you're talking about the name changing thing as well, first generation African American, my family's from Ghana. So all my siblings have a Ghanaian name. And for me, my name is Elizabeth. That's my English name. And growing up in a predominantly Black community, I was the only Elizabeth until college, pretty much. And totally feeling that of just the name that you have and the American name that you pick in particular can affect so much of your journey. Personal experiences of people hearing me over the phone or getting my tone in email and then meeting me in person and that awkward pause. Oh, or the you're so articulate. There's so, yeah, I've gotten that through most of my life. There was just a lot of things that I was here just like snapping vigorously because, yeah, in short, this is awesome. I relate to and agree with many points that you bring up, from being first generation American, being read as Black American and not being read as African at all. But then also someone who's trying to migrate and move abroad, and those very questionable, for lack of better words, terms that are on documentations and even the questions that are being asked for people who want to live abroad or who need to move abroad. That's consolidation of, whoa, this is so cool, vigorous snaps.
Again, glad you resonate. I'm glad you really enjoyed the talk as well. To answer your question, well, I want to respond at least to your thought of moving abroad. It is by far the hardest thing that I've ever done. I did it at 17 alone, and it is not easy by any means, but it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. I have learned to become who I am as a person, and I have grown just even in communication. I've grown like beyond measures beyond. Now, because I'm able to, I've got educated here, I've grown up in a way, become more of an adult here, I'm able to capture a lot of these forms, as you put it, the government forms, and the crap that they make you disclose on it. I completely understand. I am doing it countlessly. I've done so many by now. I literally I have a folder, be prepared, do this yourself. I have a folder with the countless visas I've applied to and all the things. I don't even have to look anywhere else for what is the visa process. I literally go to that folder, choose the folder, they're like, here, I'm really used to it. So I honestly, Japan's going to be really exciting, and it is a great market to be a part of. It's very interesting because there are many old people. It's actually the oldest market that you're going to address than anywhere else in the country. So that's actually anywhere else in the world. So that's actually something you would be able to pick up as a designer, is how do you design for an older generation? Because the younger generation is so concentrated only in Tokyo and maybe like other cities. Kyoto maybe might be another major city. So they're very concentrated there, but your perspective about designing for an older generation, and there are a lot of venture capitalists now moving in that direction as Japan's opening borders more to different cultures, or to migrants in general, because that was the only economy that did not allow migrants initially. They had never allowed it. They had closed off borders, and very recently they did open it. So please, if you go there, or if you need to connect with someone over there, I know one person. I know one person. I'm happy to send them your way. She works at Design It, and we studied together at SCAD. So we'll chat more. Just reach out to me somewhere. I'm sure there are countless places to find me. But yeah, did anyone else have any thought to that? Any reaction? All welcomed. Violent reactions really welcomed. We like those. It's too quiet.
Well, this is oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was like, it's so quiet.
I think it's a really fascinating discussion, and really appreciate the really great and thoughtful questions, and everyone who's been able to share their own experiences tonight, because I really think it's made for a richer conversation. We wanted to be respectful of everyone's time too, for the event being at 7:30, and we want to thank Adobe XD for being our sponsor and bringing Archie to us as a speaker tonight. Adobe XD is really working to build the design community, and really helping to create rich conversations like what we had tonight. So wanted to thank them for their sponsorship. Also wanted to let you all know our next event, we're going to shift our audience a little bit. We're going to be partnering with Ohio Tech Day on September 24th at noon. It's a Friday. They are really trying to get high school students more interested and aware of different careers in the tech field. And so we're going to be hosting an online panel at noon, talking about like what is a user experience, product design, field interaction design, providing some education on that. And we will have Q&A on the end. And if anybody is interested in sharing their experience in the field as part of that Q&A session, we'd love to have you. So just feel free to reach out to me and Amy, and we'll post more information on the event soon. Any other questions or comments before we finish up for the evening?
Feedback is welcome too. I'm not perfect.
Yes, I posted Archie's podcast in the chat there, so please check it out. And virtual
Try to
pod.
reach out too, please. Happy to chat, happy to have more of these discussions if this is something that needs to happen. Like I said, this conversation is bigger than me. We've not been talking about it, and I would like to start talking about it. So please. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, your patience, and your thoughtfulness and learning and all of that. It was wonderful to see the reaction, truly, to be honest.
Yeah, it was really impressive engagement tonight. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Archie, for the great presentation and really opening our eyes and building empathy for migrants. Okay.
All righty. Well, have a wonderful night, everyone.
Yep.
It is time. It is that time where I get to eat food. I'm gonna grab a glass of wine and
Yep.
food. It's
Yep.
wait.
Yeah.
It's whining and dining time.
Yep. I hope to see
Thank you all
again
very
soon.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.